Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video I'm going to talk a little bit about politics, basically what's happening in the world and how can we keep level-headed in a scenario where everywhere we seem to turn there is bad news, sort of a very bleak outlook of what to actually look forward to as human beings, right? I listen to the radio, I hear bad news, I watch the TV, more bad news, and even on other media platforms, it's probably not as bad, but still, we get this overbearing picture that the world is sort of out of hope. And what I hope to do by making this video and potentially future videos is sort of give some kind of balanced overview, and an overview that sort of tends towards the future and not towards nowhere, which is sort of the picture that you get from basically everyone. Everyone seems to be saying that the world is done for, and that there's no hope. Well, here I am saying, look, just have a bit of perspective and keep your chin up, right? So basically, I'm just going to go through. I'm using the internet to find out what's actually happening across the world, and I think when you go straight to the source and find out for fact what's actually happened, there's a lot more sort of demystification. That the information doesn't actually belong to those in news media outlets. The information belongs to those who are looking for it. So here I am looking for the information, and here I am about to sort of speak about what's actually going on and how we can have a positive outlook on news stories and events that are happening across the globe. So here we go. What is happening in the world? First of all, there is a major escalation involving American and Israeli forces launching strikes deep into Iran, reportedly killing the supreme leader, along with other commanders. This represents one of the most significant military escalations in the Middle East in decades. So, I mean, what to say about this? It seems like America is sort of acting as like a bit of a state bully. They have no place in the Middle East. I think their place is in America. So wherever they sort of want to have their influence, I know they have Alaska and Hawaii, which are sort of states outside of their own region. So if they're looking to have influence in places like the Middle East, they should look to have influence in ways such as trade, not in bombs. So that's really what I have to say about this. This did shock me a wee bit. However, it's kind of at the same time very unsurprising. To me, it's just another bad news story, but I guess with the tinge of sort of severity with the supreme leader of Iran actually being murdered. So when countries go ahead and murder each other's leaders, this is sort of not what we want out of a global world order, but this is sort of what's happened. So what do we do? That's the question, right? So what is Iran doing in response? Iran has retaliated with missile and drone strikes against Israeli cities and US bases, drawing a region towards wider war and causing flight disruptions and airport closures in the Gulf. There's really no surprise there, and I understand why they'd be pretty pissed off. They sort of have their own little shindig going on there in Iran, and to me, they don't really seem to be hurting anyone. They kind of just, if they are hurting anyone, it's only themselves. And I think, in perspective here, I think they have a pretty sturdy regime going on. So I don't think that they're actually hurting anyone that isn't asking for it in the region. So yeah, I understand why they have retaliated, and if they didn't, that would be ridiculous. So anyone to sort of pull the card and say that Iran is being an aggressor, they're actually acting in defense. So I guess a big shame on the states for bombing a pretty innocent territory, and we'll see what happens in the future going on from here, right? So what's happened across the globe? Global reactions are tense while some governments urge restraint. Protests have erupted worldwide, both in support of and against the strikes. Well, I mean, this seems pretty uncalled for when you ask me. I mean, yesterday I was lying in bed, sort of hoping for a better future, making lots of prayer and lots of earnest supplication for peace across the world. I wake up the next day and listen to the news, check my phone, and America has bombed Iran. So it's pretty ironic. I mean, we don't need to go into any detail about what these states stand for. We know the truth about what these people actually do with their actions, regardless of what they sort of stand for as nations, right? So big shame, but we'll see what happens, right? I mean, the best goal we can sort of hope for in a global sense is to have peace, but peace can't be sort of brokered for with nil measures when one country is going ahead and murdering another country's world leader, right? So we'll see what happens, right? And the next part of the story, the conflict's ripple effects extend even into the international sports and travel planning, including concerns over major events like the upcoming World Cup. Yeah, well, there's meant to be a football World Cup in the States. They've just murdered someone's world leader, so who wants to go to that now, right? I mean, really, they've got blood on their hands, and I mean, yeah, it's not good, right? So that's the first story. Now the next story. This is something that's been going on for 4 years, I think. So on the 4th anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has renewed efforts to secure European Union accession by 2027 and called for more military and diplomatic support. Well, I mean, when you take into consideration what's happening in the Middle East, this conflict is nothing. I mean, sure, it's border to border, and there is killing going on. I mean, at least it's sort of confined to the military arena. Whereas in the Middle East, it just seems to be like chaos. So while we want peace in Ukraine, I think this sort of falls secondary to the developments that are actually happening in the Middle East, right? So, I mean, this is something that we can make a lot of supplication for. Whether you're a Muslim or a Christian or Jewish or Hindu or Buddhist or whatever, whatever your religion is, we can make prayer to hopefully break through, sort of, yeah, affect some kind of a change, because at the end of the day, this is the decree of God, right? Whether we agree with it or not, this is sort of what's happening in the world. So beg Allah that He will give us peace in our worldly affairs, right? So that's what I think about Ukraine. It's been going on so long now, maybe it's sort of become kind of desensitized to it. I know at the time I was very affected by it. I was very affected for a number of years, but as soon as I realized that no one was really going to actually do anything about it, you sort of stop sort of pushing for a result here, and you just sort of hope that these global powers sort of get a bearing of sanity and get their heads in the right place and sort of hope for a restored world order where people don't have to go to war just to get what they want. It's become just I don't know what it's become. Something that no one's really happy about, and there's a reason why the world is so unhappy at the moment. It's because there's so many wars going on, and how can we be happy in a world order where half the world is essentially at arms, right? So that's what I think about Ukraine. Now, what else do we have to talk about, and what are people worried about in the world? So recent surveys show that people around the world are increasingly worried about several overarching issues, including economic instability, war and regional conflicts, climate change impacts, and political corruption. So key concerns include rising living costs and inflation. Well, I mean, there's a lot to be said about this. I mean, I think with conflicts going on, everything's going to go up in price. That's just a very, very, very bog standard, basic understanding of how the world works when there's conflict going on. All the resources go into these conflicts, and then the rest of the world is sort of left with what's left, right? So what else is causing the living costs and inflation? I mean, just I don't know, but I would say that's probably the big one. And what else are people concerned about across the world? So geopolitical tensions, including Middle East, Russia, Ukraine, and cross-border disputes. So I've talked about Iran. There's also Palestine, and there's Russia, Ukraine, which has been going on for a long time, but we can make prayer and hope for restored order and cross-border disputes. So whatever is happening across people's borders, I guess there's fighting, right? And environmental and climate crises. So I recently followed briefly the COP27, I think it was, or it could have even been COP30. I think it's 30. 2027 might have been a while ago. So the 30. It just seemed to be another conference. I mean, what are people really going to contribute towards a better future environmentally? I mean, there's one camp that says, look, these changes in climates are just natural. I mean, the climate goes through highs and it goes through lows. So whether we're just going through a bit of a spike at the moment, or whether this is actually scientifically a phenomena that we have to address, I think it's both. I mean, and I speak in sort of a sense of divine order here. Like when we're so sporadic with our resources, when we use petrol and coal and gas and all this, like it's going out of fashion, there is going to be some kind of divine recompense here, and our world is going to be a lot less stable because of it, I think. And I'm just going to say one thing. I think when there's fracking, such as in the States, earthquakes increase like by a magnitude of thousands. I could be I might need to look into the exact science on this one, but I think with oil drilling, there's oil spills. That's obvious, and there's also, of course, the carbon emissions that come from vehicle use, and just fuel. There's nuclear. Obviously, that's not good for the environment either. But I mean, my honest opinion here is that we can't control the weather, whether we want to or not. But the supplication, the prayer of anyone who wants to change the way things are, is a lot more powerful than than sort of hoping for a changed world order when no one really seems to care. So that's what I think about climate change and environmental issues and stuff like that. I mean, if we really cared, we'd stop using our cars. We would recycle more. We would choose how we spend our money. But how many people care so much that they're going to stop using their vehicle? No one. So where's the standard here? There's a clear double standard by virtually everyone. Unless they stop driving, they are contributing towards carbon emissions, which is essentially a catalyst for climate change, right? So, you know, you might meet someone who swears by their e-bike and you know, eats only organic, but I mean, where's the energy coming from for this kind of stuff? I mean, the e-bike is being charged by petrol, by electricity. The electricity is being sort of produced by coal. So there's your carbon emissions there, and organic produce uses a lot more resources. It uses a lot more water, probably. I mean, I don't know, but it probably does use a lot more resources to come up with pure organic products. So whether we want efficient resource use or we just want you know, a better ideal here, I mean, it's good to work towards these things, but we need to actually stand for principles here, and if we're not standing for principles, we have no leg to stand on. So that's what I think about environmental issues and stuff. And what else are people worried about? Erosion of democratic norms. So I don't know what that means. I mean, to me, that just seems to be something that the computers come up with. I think democracy is still pretty good, but you know, go figure. And what else is happening in the world? Okay, so we have persistent global conflicts. So beyond headline wars, multiple other conflicts and tensions continue to shape international geopolitics. So protracted fighting in parts of Africa and the Sahel. So I don't actually know what the Sahel is, but we'll find out, shall we? One moment. So that's stretching from the Atlantic Ocean to the Red Sea, and it includes Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and I think Sudan, Congo, Somalia, Ethiopia, and I guess there's fighting going on there. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but I would say put down your sword. That's probably the first thing. That's all I really have to say, because I don't know of anything happening in Africa or the Sahel. What else is going on though? Obviously, I can come back to this with more information or more of an insight. But for now, just call me a novice. I'm really just commenting on what I think in a general sense here. What else do we have? We have border disputes, for example, India, Pakistan, Thailand, Cambodia. So I know there's disputed territory in India, Pakistan, and it seems a bit petty to me, if I'm being honest. But you know, I don't know the ins and outs of it, and you know, some people might get up in arms about this kind of stuff, but to me, it just seems like they need to stop, you know, stop going straight to the gun when it comes to a disagreement. And Thailand, Cambodia. So that's the first I've actually heard of this. So I'll find out in time. Anyway, so what else do we have? Ongoing security challenges in Myanmar, Sudan, and Haiti. Well, we know about what's going on in Myanmar. If we don't, then, you know, wake up. But there's a lot of killing going on there. Sudan, there's there's war between, I think it's the RSF and the government. And Haiti. Well, that's the first I'm hearing about this too. So I guess it's everywhere, isn't it? And displacement and humanitarian crisis remain widespread. So, yeah. What can you do about it? We can just take in refugees and do our best, right? And if we can't keep order all across the world, well, at least we can keep some kind of civility in the West, if the rest of the world is going to remain at odds with everything, right? So that's what I think. Now, what else do we have? Youth-led political movements. So across much of Asia and beyond, Gen Z protests and uprisings have emerged over issues such as corruption, inequality, democratic backsliding, and economic hardship. These movements have already led to regime changes and policy shifts in several countries. Honestly, what I think here is that these Gen Zs need to just grow up. They're probably just on their cell phones looking at things to get angry about. They don't actually know why they're angry. They're just following trends. And I mean, who do they think they are? Like they probably don't have jobs, and if they do, they're probably only just learning one or two things about getting into like a sort of a grown-up life where you have to actually earn your place, and once you've earned your place, then you've earned it. So these people that are trying to overthrow the system, what are they trying to overthrow? Are they trying to overthrow corruption, or are they just trying to overthrow a system to try and be different, or to try and act as though they're doing something good, whereas they're actually causing a lot more harm than necessary by disrupting regimes? I mean, I don't know what these regime changes have been, and I don't know what these policy shifts have been, but from what I understand about Gen Z, they're very naive, and you know, I don't take them seriously. I think if I meet a Gen Z that stands for what is true, they can be an exception, or they can be a new standard. But honestly, they just seem like kids, and what good is there to overthrow a government? I mean, if the government's not the worst government that you've ever seen, we know about certain things that have happened in history, such as sort of the civil rights movement in America. We know that some of these protests here were bad. Some of these protests here were against real systemic injustice. And in India, for example, with Mahatma Gandhi, sort of fighting against the colonial powers and things. I mean, I think there was real injustice in these places, but when it just comes to your standard people just trying to run the government, and maybe there's a few bad eggs in there, I mean, it's probably best when they say, what is it they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, or something like that. I mean, yeah, that's what I think. Until they can prove to me that they actually are adults and not just whining children, I think I'm just going to have the same opinion that they are just troublemakers, and they're just on their phones all day, stirring up trouble, and they're not actually out there doing any real work, right? So call me out if you want. Tell me I'm wrong, but that's really what I think about the Gen Z issue that we are sort of facing across the country, or across the world, with countries sort of facing opposition to established rule, really. So that's that. Now we've just got a couple more topics, and I'll try and not ramble too much, but maybe I'll talk about one or two more things. So the next thing, long-term issues with global impacts. Several structural trends are shaping politics and society over the medium term. AI and tech competition, especially between America and China, is emerging as a strategic arena for power and economic advantage. Economic nationalism and trade tensions, including tariffs and market uncertainties, are affecting global economic integration. And toxic political polarization in many democracies is undermining public trust and complicating governance. So we'll start with the first thing, AI and tech competition. Well, I mean, um, it just seems to be a new thing. What's there to argue about? What's the conflict about? It's just a new technology. Whoever is controlling it, or whoever has the leading edge, then it's probably best for the world that they do the best that they can. No one needs to sort of have a monopoly on it just to benefit everyone. We can win together as humanity here. So whatever's going on there, I don't really know what the issue is, but I guess some people want to have a monopoly on it, or some people want to win the race. I think the race is about sort of a collective goal, not about who has the most power. I mean, that's just the way I see it. And what else is happening? Economic nationalism and trade tensions. So tariffs and market uncertainties. Yeah, I know that there were some ridiculous tariffs posed by America. So when it comes to these guys, I just think like, you know, you just can't reason, can you? No. So I just don't give them any energy. So that's all I know about that. And toxic political polarization in many democracies, undermining public trust and complicating governance. So I know in this country, New Zealand, it's so polarized. I mean, you can't say anything. Everything is so loaded. It's about people just they can't talk to each other anymore. If you talk about one thing, it just sort of expounds into many issues, and many issues, and then it just becomes all political, and then it's, are you on my side or are you against me? And it's just like, come on, bro, we just want to have a chat, want to say, hey, how you going? But you can't do that because everyone wants to get all offended about the smallest little things. So where do I sit on this? I don't sit on either side of the fence. I think it's just, yeah, just don't play the game, because I think there's better things to do. And lastly, wider global challenges. Major issues that don't always hit daily headlines but are critical to long-term global stability include climate change and disaster resilience. Well, we've talked about climate change. Food and water security in vulnerable regions. Okay, well, I guess they can work on that, and we can all try. And migration and refugee flows driven by conflict and environmental change. Well, yeah, we've already talked a bit about both of those things. And health system preparedness, post-pandemic link listed in broader analyses of 21st century crises. Well, I think the pandemic was a bit of a joke, honestly. I think it was sort of, let's take what's reasonable and expound it to the 99th degree, and stop caring about your fellow brother, your fellow human, and start caring about something such as a sort of blind government that only wants you to conform to its standards. Yeah, so It's just what I think. And yeah, so what is actually happening in summary? What's driving today's world politics? Well, there's armed conflict and military escalation, especially in the latest conflict which has happened in the Middle East. Ongoing geopolitical wars and rivalries, Russia-Ukraine, Middle East border disputes, domestic political instability and public dissatisfaction in many nations, economic and technological competition with trade policies and AI leadership, and global social movements with youth and civil society activism. So there we have it. There's my 2 cents for what it's worth. I think the world's a pretty good place if we know how to get along. But if we just want to argue all the time and be petty about every small issue that really doesn't make a difference here or there, we're just gonna stay deeply dissatisfied with each other's commonality. So yeah. I guess the more I make these videos, the more I'll learn about what's actually going on in the world. But for now, here's just a brief commentary on what I think about what's going on in the world and how we can sort of get along, as opposed to look for things to complain about or things to argue about or things to get upset about when we have a lot more in common than we have in difference. So there we have it. Thank you very much, and stay tuned for another video on similar things. Cheers.